Hi and welcome to part 5 of Lola Rose by Jacqueline Wilson, continuing from chapter 12, A Baby? Kendall was still up when I got back, even though it was way past his bedtime. It was way past mine too. Don't you ever go off like that again, Jake said. Kendall's been crying for you. No, I haven't, said Kendall, hitting him on the head with George. I don't want stupid old Lola Rose. I can't stick her. Is that true, I said. Can't we have a cuddle then? Kendall shook his head, but I picked him up anyway. He feebly punched me to prove his point and then snuggled into me. Bedtime, I said, nuzzling his soft feathery hair. I'm not a bit tired, Kendall said, yawning. I am, said Jake. I reckon I must have read Thomas the Tank Engine at least 200 times. I got Kendall into bed. He went to sleep in seconds, and then I sidled back to Jake. Are you going to tell Mum I dressed up in her stuff and went out? I should do, but I'm not going to. Thanks. I'm just saving my own skin. She'd be mad at me for letting you. Lola Rose, have you really got a boyfriend? Well, I know these boys, but the one I liked didn't turn out very nice, so I probably won't be seeing him again. Maybe that's just as well. Maybe it is, I hesitated. Jake, you know you did the flowers on my jeans. Could you do flowers on my denim jacket too, on the pockets, like maybe pink to match the furry bit? Sure, if you're a good girl. I will be now. I didn't kiss him goodnight, but because I wasn't a little kid, like Kendall. But I waved my fingers at him and he waved both fingers and hands back at me. Jake's okay, really, I whispered to Kendall when I cuddled up to him in bed. I know that, Kendall mumbles. I thought he'd gone back to sleep, but then he suddenly said, Is he better than Dad? He's better for us, I said. Jake didn't tell tales to Mum, but she found out anyway. I got her top a little bit dirty and torn one of the little rubber tips off her high heels. You've been wearing my clothes, you little what's-it, she said the next morning, slapping at me with the crumpled top. She was in a very bad mood. I'd heard her arguing with Jake in the middle of the night. I got scared, though. There wasn't a real fight. I just felt like playing at dressing up, I said quickly. You went out all dressed up too, didn't you? Don't lie to me, Lola Rose. There's mud all over my best shoes, you stupid little cow. I dare you to sneak off like that. How dare you? What were you up to? You might be able to wind Jake around your little finger, but it won't wash with me. I'm not having you going out by yourself like that. Or were you by yourself? You weren't going with boys, were you? I went for a walk in the park with Miss Balsam, I said. Jake stared at me, but didn't say a word. Mum said plenty. What was she asking you, eh? I bet she wondered what you were doing out by yourself, teetering about like a little trollop in my high heels. Oh, God, Lola Rose, you've dropped me in it now. No, I haven't, Mum. She's ever so nice. She says I'm special. Special needs, more like, grabbing away to that nosy old bag. She's not nosy. You've got her all wrong, Mum. She's just friendly. Rubbish, said Mum. Now listen here, Lola Rose. You keep right out of her way. Don't let her worm anything out of you, okay? Else you'll be put into care as quick as a wink. And Kendall too. I don't want to be put into care, Kendall wailed. He didn't know what care was, but he spilled cornflakes all down his t-shirt in his anguish. There, now look what you've made him do, said Mum. And we're late for school as it is. Come on, mucky pup. Let's get you shifted. Lola Rose can change him and take him to school, said Jake. We're going to the doctor's, Vic. Mum went red in the face. You might be going to the doctor's, matey. I'm certainly not going to waste any time sitting in some dismal surgery, breathing in everyone's germs. Come here, Kendall. My heart was thudding. What's the matter, Mum? Are you ill? Of course I'm not ill. There's absolutely nothing wrong with me, she insisted. Victoria, said Jake. Shut up, will you, said Mum. I kept on at her, but she wouldn't tell me anything. I did as Jake said and took Kendall to school. I kept worrying about it all morning. What's up, Lola Rose? Said Harpreet at lunchtime. You're not in a huff with me, are you? Is it because my mum wouldn't let you stay for dinner? She's a bit funny like that. I'm ever so sorry. It's not your mum I'm worrying about, Harpreet. It's mine, I said. I stopped eating my half of Harpreet's banana. Jake was nagging at her to go to the doctor's this morning. They wouldn't tell me why. Mum kept saying she wasn't ill, but why else would she need to go? I know, said Harpreet. She could be having a baby. I stared at her. Don't look so gobsmacked. Your mum could be having Jake's baby, right? I suppose so, I said. Though I don't think she wants any more children. These things happen, said Harpreet, in a very worldly wise way. I tried to get my head around the idea of a baby. I pictured this little squirmy pink creature with Jake's long hair falling right down to its toes. Maybe I could brush it and plait it and play hairdressers. Kendall wouldn't always let me pick him up and baby him nowadays. Maybe it would be fun to have a real baby to play with. Mum didn't have much patience with babies. I could look after it for her and pretend it was mine. I gobbled up the rest of the banana and then got stuck into my 6 squares of Cadbury's chocolate. I stroked the wrapping paper. Maybe she could dress up the baby in purple. I could get Jake to help me make little purple dungarees with red flowers on the pockets. The baby could have a tiny purple teddy to match. I spent the afternoon designing baby outfits on the back of my school jotter. I went arm in arm with Harpreet to pick up Kendall and Armadeep from their after-school club. We talked babies all the way home. Who's going to have a baby? Kendall asked. Mum. Well, maybe she is. Harpreet thinks so, I said. Mum, said Kendall, astounded. She's not. She hasn't got a big tummy. Not yet. It'll grow. Is our mum going to have a baby? Said Amandeep. She's got a big tummy. I know, but she's just fat. I hope I don't get fat like her when I'm grown up, said Harpreet, rubbing her hands up and down her skinny hips. My sister's getting a bit fat around the tummy. If she's pregnant, our whole family will go bananas. I don't want Mum to have a baby, said Kendall. Yes, you do. You like playing babies in the playhouse. I could show you how to bath the baby and feed it and change its nappy, I offered. I don't want to change pooey nappies, said Kendall. I changed heaps of yours. Kendall wears a nappy, Amandeep exclaimed. I don't, Kendall shrieked. He punched me hard in the stomach. Tell her I don't. Ouch, I said, doubled up. Will you give over punching? It hurts. Listen, you must never ever hit Mum in the tummy now. You could really hurt her and the baby. Kendall wears a nappy, a nappy, a nappy, Amandeep chanted. Kendall punched her too. She punched him straight back, her little fist as hard as a stone. Kendall howled, ended up having to carry him half the way home. It's your own fault, stupid, I said, after I'd said goodbye to Harpreet. You hit her in the first place, and she's much better at fighting than you are. You shouldn't take any notice when she teases you. But I don't wear a nappy. I know, and she knows she was just being silly. I don't like her anymore. I want George. Kendall butted my shoulder with his head, trying to turn me into a turquoise plush. George had been banished from school because he'd attacked too many children in the infants. He lurked behind Kendall and then bobbed out and gnawed their legs. Kendall's teacher kept telling him off. Kendall said it wasn't him, it was George, and sharks couldn't help biting legs, it was their nature. Kendall's teacher had a word with me. I told Kendall to quit it. Kendall said he'd try, but he couldn't always stop George. Bitey, 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 Kendall shouted, while George attacked a big boy called Dean, who said Kendall was a nutter. George couldn't really bite, but Dean could. He bent down and sank his teeth straight into Kendall's skinny leg. Mum was furious when she saw the bite marks on Kendall. She was all set to charge up to the school and have a punch-up with the teacher, Big Dean and his even bigger mother. I told Mum the whole story and she backed down. She whacked Kendall over the head with George and said he had to stay shut at home while Kendall went to school. Kendall wept and wailed every morning when he had to say goodbye to George. Mum told him it was his own fault and wouldn't give in. Jake bought Kendall special shark-shaped turquoise jelly sweets to cheer him up on the way to school. Kendall sucked the shark sweets, but howled just as hard. Turquoise drool ran down his chin and dripped onto his t-shirt. I tried to turn Kendall's bed into an aquarium for George, spreading Jake's blue denim jacket over the cover and draping my green socks here and there like seaweed. I said George could be a basking shark, so he'd love lolling around all day doing nothing. He'll miss me terribly, Kendall wept. If he gets a little bit lonely, he can always snuffle into your pillow and pretend it's you, I told him. What can I snuffle into at school? Kendall asked. I suggested snipping a tiny sliver off George's fin to go in Kendall's pocket to use like a very tiny cuddle blanket. Kendall didn't like the idea of a mini amputation. He snuffled into me instead. I sighed about it, but I quite liked being needed so much. I'd have to watch out for Kendall when the new baby came. I'd make a big fuss of both of them. I'd pick Kendall up from school and the baby from the nursery and take them for walks in the park. I'd find a proper park with swings and a duck pond and an ice cream van. I'd strap Kendall into one swing and then sit on another with the baby on my lap. We'd feed the ducks. I'd hold the baby on one hip and hang on to Kendall's t-shirt tight while he chucked bread into the water. Then we'd feed ourselves. An ice cream for me, a red lolly for Kendall, and a little lick of ice cream for the baby. I'd be utterly Lola Rose, my hair down to my waist, and much, much, much thinner. Maybe people would think I was the baby's mother. Maybe I'd go ahead and have my own babies, seeing I was so good with little children. Or maybe I'd start my own nursery, and we'd make collages out of sticky paper and macaroni and fruit gums. I played this pretend game all the way home. My arms ached holding Kendall, but I didn't care. I jiggled him up and down, singing the Lucky, Lucky, Lucky song. I'd stopped worrying. I didn't know that the worst worry was just about to start. Chapter 13. The Lump. Mum and Jake were at home, sitting at either end of their new sofa bed. Mum's eyes were red and puffy. She pressed her lips together, like she was scared she was going to start crying again. Jake kept looking anxiously at her. His eyes were red too. He hadn't been crying, had he? Mum looked at us. What are you staring at me like that for? She said. Jake reached out and tried to take her hand. Tell them, he said. Mum snatched her hand away. Shut up, she said. Tell us what? I said, getting really scared. We know anyway, said Kendall. What do you know? Said Mum, looking startled. You're going to have a baby, said Kendall. Mum gave one high-pitched yelp of laughter. "Ha! No, I'm not." "Yes, you are," Lola Rose said. "Well, Lola Rose doesn't know what she's talking about," said Mum, folding her arms and glaring at me. My new baby withered away inside its flowery dungarees until it was just a little purple smear. "So, what is it then? Are you and Jake splitting up?" "I wouldn't be surprised," said Mum. "No, we're not," said Jake. But he didn't sound certain. "Dad hasn't found us, has he?" I whispered. I looked wildly around the room, scared he was hiding, waiting to pounce. "It's not your dad." "It's not anything," said Mum. She got up to fill the kettle, switching the tap on, so fiercely she sprayed herself with water. "Bum, I'm having a cup of tea. Who wants one?" "Your mum's got a lump," said Jake. He mumbled it, so I wasn't quite sure what he'd said, and then when the words echoed in my head, they still didn't make any sense. A lump. I looked at Mum, trying to see this lump on her head, her arm, whatever, wherever. "I told you to shut up, Jake," Mum said furiously. "The kids don't need to know. They'll have to know if you're going into hospital." "I'm not going into hospital," said Mum, dabbing her wet front violently with a tea towel. "The doctor said, yeah, well, he was probably just talking rubbish to scare me. I'm fine. I keep telling you. Do I look ill? There's nothing wrong with me. And I'm not going into hospital so they can slice bits off me." Mum stopped jabbing her chest and wrapped her arms around herself. "Mum, what lump?" I went to her and tried to cuddle her, but she pulled away from me. "It's nothing, nothing," she said fiercely. It was something. She'd had a lump in her breast for months and months, a lump that was getting bigger and bigger. She'd kept quiet about it, hoping it would clear up by itself. Then Jake felt it and said she should go to the doctor. We didn't have a doctor here, so Jake dragged her to his. "He says your mum needs to go to this clinic as soon as possible. He's getting her an emergency appointment." "Yeah, well, he can stick his emergency appointment because I'm not going. I'm not having some creep feeling me up and telling me I need a boob chopped off." I made the tea for Mum, but she was shaking now. Her teeth clinked against the mug every time she tried to take a sip. I started shaking too. "He said it might not come to that. It could just be a cyst or something," said Jake. "And anyway, if it is bad news, then it's just a little routine operation. That's what he said." "Little," said Mum. "I'm not having them cutting me, ruining my looks. Who'd want me then, for God's sake?" She looked at Jake. I willed him to say the right thing, but he couldn't come out with anything at all. Kendall started to cry. I picked him up and hugged him tight. "There, look, you're getting the kiddies all upset," said Mum. "Why can't you keep your big mouth shut, Jake?" "I was only trying to help," he said. "Yeah, well, we don't need your help. We don't need you," said Mum. She put her hand over her mouth, as if she couldn't believe she'd just said it. She looked at Jake, her eyes brimming with tears, just like Kendall. She didn't mean it. She was just saying stupid stuff because she was so scared. She needed Jake terribly. He sat there like a dummy, fiddling with a strand of his long hair, winding it round and round his finger. Mum started crying. Jake didn't budge an inch, so she had to crawl over to him. She leaned on his chest and howled all over his shirt, making black smudges on the blue denim. Mum said she was sorry, and Jake said it was okay, and she was going to be fine. But he sounded like he was reading from the telephone directory, and his eyes stared into the shadows in the corner of our living room. I couldn't sleep that night. I ate my way furtively through a whole big packet of fruit gums in bed, even though I'd eaten an enormous cheese and pineapple pizza for tea. I lay this way and that, my mouth stoppered with sticky gums, my hands clutching my swollen tummy. Kendall snuffled in his sleep beside me. George clasped to his chest. Mum and Jake were awake for ages. I heard them whispering on and on. Mum started crying again, and I sat up in bed, wondering if I should run to her. But then I heard Jake saying stuff, and lots of sighing, and then the bed started creaking. I put my head under the pillow, not wanting to hear any more. I wanted to burrow right through the pillow into some sugar candy sleepland where nothing bad ever happened and everyone lolled on great soft sofas and sucked sweets. I started to dream it, lying on a sofa, but it started tipping crazily, making me feel sick. A stream of strawberry orange lemon gushed out of my mouth. I was whirled around in this lurid water, hurtled out to a vast ocean where huge dark shapes were swimming. Mum tried to act as if nothing was wrong the next morning. She wouldn't talk about the lump. She kept it up for days, pretending she didn't have a worry in the world. She sang loudly all around the flat, but she wasn't fooling anyone, not even Kendall. One night I woke up in the middle of the night, needing to pee. I walked into the bathroom. Mum was in there, nightie in her hand, staring at herself in the mirror. She had her head tilted, hands on her hips, breasts stuck right out as if she were posing for a glamour photo. She had a silly smile on her face, but there were tears trickling down her cheeks. She gasped when she saw me and covered her chest with her arms. I wondered if the lump stuck out and looked scary. "Knock, can't you?" Mum said crossly, turning her back on me and tugging her nightie over her head. "Mum, are you going to go to that clinic?" "Nope." "But what if the lump gets bigger? What if—" "Just shut up about it, Janie." "Lola Rose," I whispered. "Yeah, Lola Rose, whatever. Just go back to bed now." So I went back to bed, even though I badly needed to pee. I hunched up, holding myself, wishing I knew what to do. I hadn't told Harpreet. I'd let her burble on about babies. I didn't want to tell her about the lump because it was so scary. I didn't want to make it seem real. But it was getting so I couldn't think of anything else. Harpreet caught me crying in the school toilets and kept on at me until I told her why. Will you swear not to tell anyone? Harpreet swore solemnly on her little sister's life. What is it, Lola Rose? Is it about the baby? There isn't a baby, I said. Harpreet blinked at me with her beautiful eyes. Did she lose it? She whispered. No, she was never having a baby. You got it all wrong. She's got this lump, here. I gestured in the air above my own flat chest. Oh, help, said Harpreet. Is it cancer? I jumped as if she'd said a very bad swear word. No one had dared say it before. I don't know. She's supposed to go to this hospital clinic to find out, but she says she's not going. She'll have to go. Is she nuts? She's always been a little bit nuts about stuff like that. I washed my hands in the basin very slowly, rubbing the soap until it made bubbles. My great-auntie had breast cancer, said Harpreet. Did she get better? There was a horrible pause. I rubbed and rubbed my hands until they wore white lava gloves. Well, I don't want to say this, Lola Rose, but actually she died. I clasped my soapy hands. But she was much older than your mum. Does that make a difference? Well, it's bound to. My great-auntie was an old lady, and she had all those strokes too. That's how she got the cancer, my mum said. She had a fall and hit her chest. She was bruised all over, and then she got the cancer. I stopped still, thinking about my mum's bruised breasts. Is that how you get breast cancer? I whispered. Could you get it if someone hits you hard? Well, maybe. I don't know. It's just what my mum says, and she's not always right. Oh, Lola Rose, don't cry again. I'm not, I said. I knew Harpreet was totally wrong, but I still didn't like her saying it. I rubbed my eyes fiercely, and then screamed as the soap stung them. Harpreet had to slosh water in my face and rub the soap away with the hem of her school skirt. It hurt horribly, but I didn't really care. Harpreet put her arms around me when she'd got the soap off. I bet your mum doesn't have cancer at all, Lola Rose. It's just some silly old lump that doesn't mean anything. That's what Jake says, but he says mum should still go and get the lump taken out. Well, obviously. What do you think will happen if she doesn't? Will the lump get bigger and bigger and bigger? I saw an awful image of mum with one breast blowing up like a balloon, all warty and revolting. Maybe, said Harpreet. Don't look so scared, though. Your mum will be all right, honest. Do you promise? I said foolishly, as if Harpreet was a medical expert and a fortune teller. I promise, said Harpreet firmly. Mum was out when Kendall and I got back from school. Has she gone to the hospital? I asked Jake. You know she won't go near the place. She's mad if you ask me, said Jake. He had Mum's makeup mirror propped up in front of him so he could draw himself. He stopped, looked at the piece of paper, sighed and crumpled it up. He started on a fresh page, screwing up his eyes to look at himself. Let's play on the computer, Jake, said Kendall, tugging at his arm. Leave off, mate. No, the computer's stuffed. You've been mucking about on it, haven't you? No, said Kendall. Well, not much. You can fix it, Jake. You always fix it. I can't fix it this time, said Jake. Will you leave off, Kendall? You're jogging me. Kendall's face crumpled. Come on, Kendall. I'll see if I can get the computer working, I said, switching it on, though I knew zilch about boring old computers. It's stuffed, I tell you, said Jake, switching it off again. Well, couldn't you just play with Kendall for 2 minutes? Look, he's crying. He's always bawling, said Jake. I've never known such a crybaby. I've got this portrait assignment, okay? I'm late handing it in as it is. Very, very late. You do realise I've hardly set foot in college since I met your mum. He said it as if we'd sellotaped him to the chair. You could do Kendall's portrait, couldn't you? Or mine, look. I copied one of Mum's favourite poses, head tilted up, mouth slightly open, chest thrust forward, hand on hip, one knee slightly bent. For God's sake, said Jake cruelly. I rushed off to the bathroom, not wanting Jake to call me a crybaby too. I hate him, I muttered, hugging myself. I wanted my mum. She didn't come back for tea. Jake didn't seem to care too much. They'd obviously had another row. He went on moodily sketching until way past tea time. I made baked beans on toast for Kendall and me. I didn't make Jake anything to show I was mad at him. Mum will be late for her evening shift down the pub, I said. That's her lookout, said Jake, as if I care. Why are you being so horrible? Look, it's not me. I'm not the one that's changed. This is all getting so heavy. Mum can't help having this lump. Yeah, but she won't deal with it like any normal woman. She has to make all this into such a drama. It's probably nothing. Women have lumps all the time. It doesn't mean it's cancer, I said. What's cancer? Said Kendall. It's an illness, said Jake. Kendall paused, pushing baked beans from one side of his plate to the other. Is Mum really sick? Sick in the head, more like, said Jake. She's sick in the head putting up with you, I said. I golloped my baked beans and ate Kendall's leftovers too. I still felt empty, so I ran my finger around the baked bean tin to lick up the juice. Don't do that. You cut yourself, said Jake. I took no notice, and then caught my finger on the jagged edge of the tin. Ouch! You idiot, said Jake. I told you. He held my throbbing finger under the cold tap, and then wrapped it up in one of Mum's scarves, because we didn't have a bandage or a hanky. Mum will create if I get blood on it, I said. Tough, said Jake. She should be here to look after you. Don't you love her any more, Jake? He tied the scarf in a neat bow, frowning. Look, I never said I loved your mum. I mean, it's been great. She can be so cute and silly and funny when she's not in one of her moods. But this was never like a forever thing. I pulled away from him so abruptly that the scarf unravelled. Mum thinks it's forever. You could have fooled me. You should have heard the things she said to me this afternoon, said Jake sulkily. Watch out, you make your finger bleed again. Give it here. I'll do it, I said, fiddling with the end of the scarf. I knew you two had a row. Your mum's certainly got a big mouth on her, said Jake. Was she that lippy with your dad, eh? I stood still. I pressed my lips together. What is it with your dad, said Jake. Your mum gets that exact expression if I ever mention him. Yeah, well, we don't talk about him. You kids don't get to see him ever. Jake looked over at Kendall, who was sitting in the corner muttering to George. Kendall misses him a lot. You know, I guess that's why he's all over me. He likes you. He thought you were forever too, like a new dad. You must be joking. I'm not old enough to be a dad. I'm only 20, for God's sake. My mum had me when she was 17. Jake, where is she? Do you think she's gone straight to the pub for her shift? I tell you, I don't know. She just went storming out. She's lucky I didn't do the same. What would you kids have done then, eh? We'd be fine. Mum knows I can look after Kendall. I suppose you can. Better than your mum. I couldn't help being pleased he said that, even though it was mean to Mum. I didn't know what to do about her. I knew she'd probably be all right. She'd run off before several times, sometimes when we were living back with Dad, sometimes since. She was often away for ages, but she always came back. I knew that, but I still worried. Maybe she'd gone storming off in such a rage she hadn't looked when she crossed the road. Maybe she'd seen a car coming, and she was in such a state she darted across anyway. Maybe she was so scared about the lump and losing her looks, she wanted to get knocked over. I put on my denim jacket. What are you up to, Lola Rose? Said Jake, as I walked towards the door. I'm going out. Oh no, you're not playing that trick on me again. I'm going looking for Mum. No, you're not. You're staying right here. Don't even try arguing with me this time. You can't stop me, I said. Maybe he could. He wasn't scary like my dad, but he was quite strong. I'd seen him lift Mum up on his arms as easily as I lifted Kendall. I didn't feel like lucky Lola Rose who might sweet talk her way around him. I felt like stupid, sad Janie. So I took my denim jacket off again and played with Kendall for a bit, and then put him to bed. I cuddled up beside him. My hand was sore, so I stuck it into my armpit. It was very painful just getting a tiny cut. I wondered what it would feel like to have a large lump of breast sliced off your body. I hugged Kendall tight, his feathery hair tickling my chin. I breathed in his sweet, warm smell. He moaned in his sleep and fought himself free, stretching out in a windmill shape so I couldn't cuddle him. It felt as if he was abandoning me. I must have gone to sleep at some time and then woke with a start when the door banged. I heard voices, Mum laughing, sounding funny. Jake said something, and then someone else spoke. Another man. Kendall sat bolt upright. Is it Dad? He asked. I crept to the door, Kendall following. I listened, the blood drumming in my head. The man spoke again. He sounded uneasy and embarrassed. It wasn't Dad. Mum laughed again, but she sounded as if she might also be crying. I went rushing through to the living room. She was staggering in those high heels, her arm draped around the neck of a strange fat man, his shirt tight over his big belly. He had dark sweat circles under his arms. It was obviously a strain keeping Mum upright. Jake was staring at them, his eyes screwed up. He looked as if he was watching an awful television soap and couldn't wait to change channels. Mum? Ah, my little Lola Rose, Mum said. She spoke as if she had a mouthful of sweets. I knew that voice. She was very drunk. Go to bed, Kendall, I said. I'll put you to bed too, Mum. I tried to unhook her from the fat man. I don't want to go to bed. I want to party, said Mum, clinging to the man. Lola, what's it? Ah, yes, Rose, my rosy posy. I want you to meet my boss, Barry. Barry bobbed his head. I'm not actually. Not anymore, he said, reaching round to unwind Mum's arm himself. You're not Barry, said Mum, trying to focus on him. Well, blow me, you look like Barry, and you sound like Barry too. Yeah, I'm Barry all right, but I'm not your boss. Not anymore, Vic. Victoria! Whatever. I'm giving you fair warning, darling. No more drinking on the job. But you and me are mates, Barry, said Mum. pursing her lips and pecking her head forward, trying to kiss him. I'm your little lark, remember? Jake grunted in disgust and turned his back on them. You're my little liability, said Barry. He pulled himself free so violently that I wasn't ready and nearly dropped Mum. Whoops, said Mum, staggering. I staggered too, trying to support her. Shall we dance? Mum said. Kendall came rushing over in his t-shirt and pants. I'll dance, Mum, he said, hanging onto her legs. Yes, let's all dance, said Mum, patting him fondly on the head. My little boy, my big girl, my lovely, lovely kids. She stopped swaying and looked straight at Barry. Maybe she wasn't quite as drunk as she was pretending to be. I've got to work to feed my kids, Barry. You know that. So I'll be in to work tomorrow usual time, right? Stone cold sober, I promise. You can be sober or you can be roaring drunk. It's all the same to me, said Barry. You're not working for me anymore. You're trouble with a capital T. Mum came out with a mouthful of abuse. Kendall giggled nervously at the rude words. That's nice, isn't it, said Barry, swearing like that in front of your precious kids, and after I took the trouble and the flack from my old lady to drive you home. You make me sick, Victoria Luck. You make me sick, Mum shouted as he slammed the door. She kept yelling it over and over. It was the wrong thing to say in the circumstances. I got her to the bathroom in time and held her forehead. She knelt over the toilet and was sick again and again. It's okay, Mum, I whispered as she moaned. It's okay, Mum, I'm here. But she kept looking around, tears dribbling down her cheeks, mouth puckered. She was looking for Jake, but he wouldn't go near her, not even when she kept calling his name. Chapter 14. Us Three. Jake left the next morning. He could see it was a good time because Mum could barely move. She groaned when she sat up in bed and she still couldn't even drink a glass of water without being sick. She watched Jake packing up his paints and drawing pads and jeans and cassettes. He was wearing all the extra presents she'd bought him, hand-tooled cowboy boots, the thick silver bracelet, a denim jacket. He glanced at the computer. Yeah, walk off with that too, why don't you? Mum whispered, watching him. Her eyes were sad slits. No, it's for the kids, said Jake. Maybe he remembered it was broken. Mr. Big Heart, Mum murmured. Look, don't be like that, Vic. Like what? My guy clears off because I've got cancer and I'm supposed to be what, happy? You don't know you've got cancer. I bet you anything you like you haven't, and I'm not clearing off because of that. It's because the money's run out, I said. I got into bed beside Mum. She winced as I made the bed move. I edged further in very slowly but put my arm around her. She smelled bad, but I knew she still needed holding. You've got it in one, Lola Rose, she said. That's rubbish. I'm not like that. Look, this was never meant to be permanent. We just had fun together, that's all. I couldn't have stayed once term is over anyway. You know I'm going travelling. Well, get on your travels now, said Mum. Get lost. She wouldn't kiss him goodbye. Maybe it was because she hadn't had a chance to brush her teeth. I wouldn't kiss him either. I ducked my head when he tried. But Kendall came running. He threw himself at Jake and hugged him hard, clinging to him like a little monkey. Don't go, he begged. I've got to go just now, Kendall, but I'll come back and see you, little mate, okay? I had to drag Kendall off him. I got kicked and punched for my pains. I had to fight back a bit because he was really hurting. Mum dragged herself out of bed to help. Then we heard the front door bang. We stopped and stood like statues, all hanging on to each other. He's gone, said Mum. She ripped the moonstone necklace off and threw it on the floor. He's coming back, he said, Kendall sobbed. No, he's not, I said. We don't want him back. Good riddance. Then, will Dad come back, said Kendall. No, we don't want any men. Not Dad, not Jake, not that big fat Barry, no one. That's right, said Mum. To hell with the lot of them. She leaned against the wall, groaning. Mum, are you all right? Is it the lump? I asked, panicking. My head's hurting, that's all, said Mum. Will you just forget my bloody lump? She went back to bed and pulled the covers right up over her head. I knew she was just wanting to hide, but it looked awful, as if she were in a shroud. I screwed up my face and hit my forehead to stop myself thinking it. Lola Rose, said Kendall. It's okay. I've got a headache too. No wonder. All that yelling, you little monster. Kendall pulled a goofy monster face, curling his fingers into claws. He didn't really want to play. I saw him glancing fearfully at Mum, but he roared and ran around the room while I played the monster catcher with my big net. For God's sake, clear off to school, you kids, Mum moaned. I didn't want to leave her on her own. I'll stay and look after you, Mum. I'll take Kendall to school, but then I'll nip back. I can make you black coffee and fix you some soup for lunch. I'm not ill. I've just got a hangover. All I want to do is sleep. You go to school, do you hear? I don't want old Bossy Boots Balsam ringing me up and giving me grief. So, I went to school. Though I couldn't get my head around any of the lessons, Kendall was in a state too. I shouldn't have started him off on the stupid little monster game. He wouldn't stop roaring in the classroom. They had to call for me to calm him down. Has anything happened to upset him at home? Kendall's teacher asked. No, miss, I said quickly. He was really starting to settle down, making a few friends, but now we seem to be back to square one. Maybe I should talk with your mum, Lola Rose. Well, or Dad. Kendall seems so very fond of him. He talks about our dad. Well, your stepdad. We haven't got a stepdad, I said firmly. When I got Kendall on his own, I gave him a good shake that set him off howling. It's your own fault, just keep your mouth shut at school, right? Kendall whined all the way home. I wished I could run right away from him. And Harpreet, she was going on and on about her mum and how she'd thrown a fit because she caught her putting makeup on. Not even proper makeup, just that glitter stuff, you know. But my mum goes bananas, right, acts like I'm this total slag. She goes on about her daughters bringing disgrace on the family. You are just so lucky, Lola Rose. Your mum doesn't care. My mum does care, I said stiffly. Yeah, but she lets you do what you want. Don't go all snotty on me. What's the matter? Harpreet nudged nearer, lowering her voice. Is she worse? Your mum? Is she getting really sick? No. Yes, said Kendall, snuffling. She was ever so sick, I saw. That was because she was drunk, stupid. Your mum was drunk, said Harpreet, rolling her eyes like her mother. Not really drunk, I said quickly. She's had a hard time. You don't understand, Harpreet. And neither do you, Kendall, so you just shut up. I gave him another shake. Telling people Jake's our stepdad. He is. What is he then? He's nothing. He's gone away. He's now gone away completely. He's gone. You mean he's left your mum, said Harpreet. Her eyes looked like they were going to pop right out of their sockets. I hated the way she was hanging on my every word. It was like she couldn't wait to hear more scandal. I wasn't sure I wanted her for my friend after all. My mum chucked him out. And good riddance, I said, slapping my hands together. My mum said it could never last, said Harpreet. I wish you and your mum would keep your noses out of our business, I said. I seized Kendall by the wrist and hauled him along, running away from Harpreet and arm and deep. Kendall yelled because I was pulling too hard, but I didn't ease up. I ran faster and faster, my heart pounding. Every beat said, Mum, Mum, Mum. I thought she'd still be cowering under the covers, but her bed was empty. The whole flat seemed empty. Mum, I called. Mum! Hiya, said Mum, coming out of the bathroom. She was wearing her white jumper and leather skirt and high heels, looking $1 million. Oh, Mum, I said, and burst into tears. Oh, my God, what's up with you, said Mum, shaking her head. She just washed her hair and it bounced on her shoulders. Are you all right, Mum? Of course I am, you silly sausage, said Mum, putting her arms around me. Kendall scrabbled to get in on the cuddle too. Mum picked him up, laughing. What's up with you, babe? Lola Rose has been horrid, he gasped, out of breath with running and crying. Rubbish, said Mum, tickling where his neck joined his shoulders. Kendall hunched over, squealing with laughter, though his eyelashes were still stuck together with tears. I looked at his damp little face and felt awful. I'm rubbish. I have been horrid, Kendall. I'm really, really sorry. Kendall blinked up at me. I might forgive you, he said, sounding so funny that we all laughed. Are you hungry, kids? Let's have tea, eh? Said Mum. She fixed us this lovely treat meal, just like a birthday party, with sausages on sticks and crisps and baby pizzas, and ice cream in new glass bowls, purple for me, red for Kendall, with our new names written on our puddings in strawberry sauce. So, see this Harpreet, I said, inside my head. My mum cares for us big time. You're the best mum ever, I said, tucking in. No, I'm not, said Mum, nibbling crisps. Haven't been very mumsy at all recently. I've left you kids alone too much. I'm going to be here for you now. No more shifts down at that stupid pub for an evening. I'm well shot of that. I'll get a day job. I was thinking maybe I could work on a makeup counter or be a hairdresser, say. I'm good at doing hair, aren't I, Lola Rose? You're the best, Mum. You do your hair beautifully, I said, patting her blonde curls. I thought you probably had to train for these jobs first, but I didn't like to say anything to spoil Mum's mood. I'm well shot of Jake, too, Mum said, raising her eyebrows at me significantly. Kendall hadn't caught on the spelling yet and carried on licking his sausage like a lolly. You bet, Mum, I said. Kendall experimented, dipping his sausage in his ice cream. Eat your sausage properly, Kendall, I said. That looks totally disgusting. It gets mixed up in my tummy, Kendall said, so why can't I mix it up in my mouth, too? Okay, but don't be surprised if no one ever wants to sit down and eat a meal with you. I don't want anyone apart from George, said Kendall, dipping George's furry jaws into the ice cream bowl too. You're getting him all mucky, I nagged, but I was relieved he wasn't throwing a tantrum about Jake. I couldn't get over how calm Mum was about him. We had a girly heart-to-heart after Kendall was in bed. I'm glad to be rid of him, Mum said bravely. I looked at her. Okay, I was nuts about him at first. Well, he is gorgeous, you must admit it, Lola Rose. He looks an absolute dreamboat. That hair, that flat stomach, that little bum. Mum? Well, you know what I mean. But I suppose I knew it wouldn't last. What with me being a little bit older and you kids and everything. Mum sighed, smoothing the skin over her forehead. Am I getting all wrinkly, Lola Rose? I've got frown lines, haven't I? What do you reckon on that Botox treatment? Do you think it would work? Maybe I'll treat myself if I get lucky on the lottery cards again, eh? You're bonkers, Mum. You haven't got any wrinkles. I have, and I'm getting all saggy and baggy too, said Mum, sticking her chest out and staring down at herself critically. She patted her breasts as if they were two puppies. Poor things. Still, I don't think this one's going to have to be sliced off. She looked at me, her eyes very big and blue. I went to the hospital today and saw this consultant. Mum, you didn't say. Well, I wasn't going to keep the damn appointment, but then I thought maybe I ought to. I mean, if it's just us, Lola Rose, then I can't take chances, can I? And if I have got something serious, then I need to get it treated, right? I wish you'd told me you were going. I'd have gone with you. You hate hospitals, I said, taking Mum's hand. It was a bit scary, but I kept thinking I had to show Jake I'm not gutless. I had to wait ages, and I was still feeling a bit groggy with the drink, so I very nearly walked out. But I got talking to these other women waiting with me, and it made me feel a bit better, knowing we all had lumps. And then the consultant himself was gorgeous, quite old, of course, but so good looking, lovely suit and beautiful hands with very sensitive long fingers. It felt very weird taking my top off for him. I went all giggly and blushed like a schoolgirl. Mum, you're not meant to flirt with your doctor. Oh, you know me. I'll flirt with a floor mop if no one else is around. But Mr. Key is the bee's knees, I swear. He says he's not going to cut my boob off even if it is cancer. She said it in a whisper. He's just taking the lump out and some little thingies under my arm in case they've got it too. So isn't that great? He swears he'll be able to cut kind of under my boob so it'll hardly show. When's he doing it, Mum? He said he'll put me at the top of his list. I thought about Mum in hospital. Then I thought about Kendall and me. My throat dried. I swallowed and waggled my tongue around to make a bit of a spit. Don't pull those silly faces. You look like poor old Bubbles, said Mum. Mum, what about Kendall and me when you're in hospital? Don't you worry about that, sweetheart. I asked a nurse and she said people only stay in a day or so. Well, I reckon I can have the little op and then discharge myself. So you'll only be on your own one night. You can manage that, can't you, darling? I wasn't sure. I knew I'd be scared, but I wasn't baby Janie anymore. I was super cool Lola Rose. Of course I'll manage, Mum. No bother, I said. That's my girl, said Mum. She put her arms around me. We hung on to each other and hugged until our arms ached. Mum stayed lovely day after day. She didn't go for another job just yet. She said she'd wait until after her operation. We used up the last of the lottery money. Mum kept treating us. Kendall had red ice lollies cut up in his cornflakes for breakfast and red ice lolly soup for his tea. She read him Thomas the Tank Engine until she was hoarse. She took him swimming and let George take a dip too, though he reeked of chlorine for ages afterwards. Mum made me Cadbury's chocolate sandwiches for breakfast and Ribena cocktails for my tea. She did my hair in a different elaborate style every day and made me up properly so that I looked almost pretty. She also bought me my very own pair of purple high heels. I still couldn't walk in them properly, even though they fitted, but I didn't care. I staggered around and around the flat in them, my bum sticking out, my ankles wobbling. I kept sticking out a leg, admiring the tautness of my calves, the arch of my foot, the glossy sheen of the purple leather, the dizzying splendour of those soaring high heels. Walk naturally. You look as if you're on a tightrope, Mum laughed. Kendall kept begging to have a go in them. He looked to scream as he minced around like a miniature drag queen, his lips bright red from the lollies. What a weird pair of kids, said Mum, lighting a cigarette and inhaling deeply. Her eyes suddenly welled up. She said it was the smoke from her ciggy, but I think that was an excuse. I kept crying at odd moments too, even when I wasn't thinking about Mum. I missed an easy catch playing rounders, and my team moaned at me, and I burst into baby tears. Some of the girls in my class said catty things about my new hairstyles, and I rushed to the toilets to cry. I got stuck doing some new maths problems and slumped in my desk snivelling. I didn't really care about dropped balls and dopey girls and decimals. What's the matter, Lola Rose? Everyone kept asking. I couldn't tell them I was scared my mum was going to die. No, of course she wasn't going to die. She probably didn't even have cancer. She was just going to have a tiny lump taken out. Then she'd be as right as rain. I imagined Mum in a rainstorm, hair plastered to her head, hunched in her white jacket. She was soaked to the skin, but she was smiling and singing, tap dancing through the puddles in her high heels. And that is where we will leave part 5 of Lola Rose by Jacqueline Wilson. I'll be back soon with the next part of this fantastic story and lots more stories and videos coming your way very soon. If you'd like to subscribe or hit a like, that's always appreciated. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.